Hello and welcome to the December Christmas edition of the Connect Live series. I really want to thank each and every one of you for tuning in to the corporate women's ministries of the Church of God of Prophecy UK. The Connect Live series concept is a platform that aims to bring women of faith and no faith from diverse backgrounds together to have conversations and discussions that highlight issues within our societies and on a national and global scale. We're fortunate to have this platform in the middle of a pandemic. We started in May 2020, and we've continued these conversations on a monthly basis, the last Saturday of every month. And you can find us on Instagram, you can find us on Facebook, and you can find us on our church website, which is www.cogop.org.uk. We are women of faith and impact. We, as I said, this particular edition, we're reflecting on 2020. So much has happened over this year. Nobody imagined last year, this time, 2019, we were reflecting, we were enjoying ourselves, we were just having a whale of a time and reflecting into 2020, but none of us could have ever imagined a global pandemic on the scale that we have experienced right here in the UK and across the globe. So whether you're tuning in from the UK, whether you're tuning in from Europe, whether you're tuning in from the USA, or indeed from the African continent, we welcome you today. And we want to focus today on just reflecting on 2020. How do we overcome barriers and obstacles? And thinking about 2021, mindset really matters. So we're going to reflect and we're going to think about and share, how do we approach stepping into 2021, having experienced what we've experienced this year. We also want to reflect and remember that people have lost loved ones over 2020. Christmas is sometimes, yes, we celebrate, but it can be a really sad time for people. And we really want to reflect on that today as well. People who are elderly, people who are shut in, we want to reach out to you today with a word of hope and with a word of comfort. And we've got three remarkable guests that will join us later on. But for now, I want to introduce you to my co-host for tonight, none other than Alni Powell.
Thank you, Joyce. Season's greetings to all our regular viewers, also to those who are new to the Connect Live series, friends and families. I am glad you agreed to tune in with us today. I hope you can spend some time with families over the Christmas seasons. I'm aware there might be those who are unable to meet due to the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic. My thoughts are with families or individuals at this time. I would like to express my condolences to those who have lost loved ones during this year. As Joy said, it has been a very sad year for many. I have known many friends and families whose brothers, sisters, mothers, husbands who are no longer with us. And it has been a difficult and a challenging time. It would also be the first Christmas without having loved ones around, and there has been a sense of emptiness. Many have lost their jobs, businesses, and homes. So my heart goes out to you today. Despite the challenges, however, we have experienced during 2020, I think it has also created opportunities for many. Many were able to start up new online businesses. Many people were able to connect more with friends and families online. Most of us might have started 2020 with plans and things we want to achieve. Some plans we had to put on hold, and others we were able to accomplish. On a personal level, I started a distant learning Christian theology course in January and already completed 3 terms. Studying gave me a focus, and I used the lockdown to educate myself, which is part of my ongoing development. I know that many also have used the lockdown to develop new skills and to become more creative. They have been able to overcome barriers and obstacles and have become more resilient. I also had an addition to my family with another grandson at the beginning of the pandemic, and baby was fine and is now 9 months. Also, because of the lockdown, Connect live series was birthed, as Joyce said, in June. And since that time, countless women have been encouraged and empowered to be the best they can. I am so grateful for the opportunity to connect with such wonderful women from South Africa, the Caribbean, the United States of America, and in Europe. I trust that 2020, 2021 will be a better year for you and your family. I'm looking forward to today's lively discussion, so sit back and enjoy. At this time, I would like Maureen.
Good evening, everyone, and season's greetings to you. Yes, my name's Maureen Morris, and I'm from Bristol, and I'm just looking forward to spending time and sharing with you this evening. God bless.
Greetings, everyone. I pray you've all had a great Christmas. My name is Geraldine Boyd. I'm the Region 2 Women's Ministry Coordinator, and I'm just so pleased to be here, and I'm looking forward to the discussions that will be following. Looking forward to speaking to you later. Thank you.
Good evening and compliments of the season to you. My name is Gloria McGowan and I'm pleased to be on this Connect series live, and I'm looking forward to be sharing with you later on. Do enjoy this program. God bless you.
It's a delight to be here right in the heart of Christmas. Alni, you shared having a new baby grandson. Did you say grandson?
Grandson, yeah, during the lockdown.
Okay. What is his name?
Cuba
Oh, wow.
Powell.
Cuba Powell.
Yeah.
That's absolutely fantastic. I wonder how many lockdown babies we've had this year. It would be interesting to see a comparison between this period last year and in comparison, whether we've seen an increase because people have been locked indoors. But congratulations to you, and Bishop Tedroy, and the parents with a new baby grandson. He also said that you've studied an online course as well. How's that been?
It's been good. It's difficult, challenging, but I think the lockdown, as I said, it's just helped me to have a focus. So instead of sitting around indoors, not being able to visit a lot, it allows me to get into my books. I've read so many different material since I've started. So it's going very well, and I'm really enjoying it.
Yeah, that's absolutely great. And I suppose there's a downside of the pandemic, but there's some real opportunity as well that you mentioned. People who have gone into businesses and entrepreneurial skills and so forth. So, as we reflect on 2020, there is that, isn't there? The condolences, and we've lost loved ones.
Yes.
And it will be a sad time. That's the realistic element, that this will be a sad time for many. And many of us, I
Yes.
think, no family has been untouched by this pandemic, have they?
Not at
I think
all.
most
A lot of people that we know, and I'm sure yourselves have known someone who the pandemic have impacted in some way or the other. So we have to continue bearing them in our thoughts. And as Christians, as believers, we pray that the Lord will continue to strengthen them, not just our families, but others.
absolutely. And our heart, goes out to each and every one that has lost loved ones this year
Yes.
during the pandemic. Our condolences to families. We reflect on, those that have worked in the NHS, those who've been on the front line in all frontline services, whether it's education, the fire service, teachers. You've been out there caring, you've been out there, you've continued working. Not everyone has been locked in. You've continued on a
Mm,
day-to-day basis, going out every day, caring and helping others. Those of you that have continued to provide social action and meals and catering, and I know many of our churches have continue to open their doors to provide
mm.
meals for the homeless and people who are less fortunate. We just want to thank you for all that you've continued to do during the pandemic. We really appreciate you. And we know our women, particularly, women, we know that you've just continued and you've battled through, and you've just continued through 2020, and even through though things have been really difficult, you've just continued. I just want to just give a message to our regional women ministry directors in the Church of God of Prophecy. When you hear, I've just pulled a report together, Alni, of the work that they've been doing in the regions,
Mm.
and it's
Yes.
been absolutely phenomenal.
Mm.
And women ministry leaders on the front line that have continued to minister, bring a word of hope, social action, prayer meetings, prayer groups, reaching out to neighbors and community and connecting, because that's what this is about, isn't it?
Definitely,
Connecting.
definitely. This lockdown, Joyce, as I said, this lockdown has opened a lot of opportunities for women to serve, and a lot of them are involved in regular telephone contacts, regular encouragement, prayer meetings, Bible studies, and some reported that they are even more busier than before, and they're reaching a lot more people, which is so powerful.
Yeah, and some of the stories are incredible. You know, one lady was saying to me that, she's lived on her road for over 20 years, and there's some people that they've never spoken to before.
Mm,
Um, and I have to admit that, in the lockdown, I've been walking now. I go walking 3 days a week, which I really enjoy, thanks to my neighbours. I actually go walking now with my neighbours 3 days a
mm,
week, and I'm meeting people. I've been in this house for 20 years, and I'm meeting people that I've never met before on my own
mm,
road. So
mm.
connecting with just your neighbors and just reaching out and just checking in on people and just seeing how they are doing. Anyway, we've got a program to deliver, so we're going to move on, aren't we? And Alan, you're going
Yes.
to introduce our psalmist for tonight.
Yes, we're going to like to introduce to you this small family.
Hark now, hear the angels sing, a new King born today, and man will live forevermore because of Christmas Day. Long time ago, in Bethlehem, so the Holy Bible says, Mary's boy child, Jesus Christ, was born on Christmas Day. Hark now, hear the angels sing, a new King born today, and man will live forevermore because of Christmas Day. While shepherds watch their flocks by night, they see a bright new shining star. They hear a choir sing a song. The music seems to come from afar. Hark now, hear the angels sing, a new King born today, and man will live forevermore because of Christmas Day. Well, Joseph and his wife Mary came to Bethlehem that night. They found no place to bear a child, not a single room was inside. Hark now, hear the angels sing, a new King born today, and man will live forevermore because of Christmas Day. Lying by the fountain, little Lord, in a stable awful war. And in a manger, cold and dark, Mary's little boy was born. Oh, hark now, hear the angels sing, a new King born today, and man will live forevermore because of Christmas Day. Oh, trumpets sound, the angels sing, listen to what they say, and man will live forevermore because of Christmas Day. That man will live forevermore because of Christmas Day. That man will live forevermore because of Christmas Day.
Wow, that was beautiful.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, have you got a favorite? Have you got a favorite Christmas carol, Alni?
Have I got a favorite? Can't think of one actually, but I do like that one. I do like that one, but I have got a favorite,
Beautiful.
but just can't think of it at the moment. But you know, the family, have you noticed that all of them are playing some form of instrument? So they're very
It's
instrumental family, the husband
very
and the children.
beautiful.
That's so excellent.
Yeah, it's fantastic. The small family are a family. One of our local churches in the West Midlands, and they're absolutely phenomenal. And clearly, they've invested in the children in musical talent. And I do know
Yeah.
um, that mother and father are singers and professional. Father is a professional drummer, so it's fantastic to see. Um,
Yeah.
and over Christmas, it's when if you are, I know we're in tier 3, so we're very limited in terms of what we can do. If families can get together um, and create something new, that's absolutely fantastic. So we thank the small family for investing in the children. And yeah, I mean, if I turn my camera around, you would see that my conservatory is not a traditional conservatory. My conservatory has got a full-size drum set, keyboards, amplifiers to the roof. I can hardly
Okay.
get through it. I invested in a conservatory, and they've taken it over. So, but
Okay.
yeah, it's lovely to see when the children get together and they play. I've got son that plays the bass guitar, a daughter that sings, another son that plays, two sons that plays the drums. So when they get going, if you don't join in, it's either, you either have to
So,
join in or
so do you join
yeah.
in with the singing, Joyce?
I do sometimes. I do sometimes. I think they've kind of what's the word? They've graduated me. So I used to be
Okay.
the singer for the players, but my daughter took over from me. So yeah, I just join in with the tambourine sometimes, and they don't like the tambourine too much. So there you
Well,
go. There you
within
go.
my family, my husband, he's a drummer. He was a well-known drummer in his younger days. He also played the keyboard and the guitar. And then my two sons, they when they were younger, they used to play the drums. And I play the drums, but I use mine is a lap drum. I sort of tend to
All
use my lap.
right.
Yeah, so I've got that rhythm. So it does run in the family. And my daughter is the same.
Oh gosh. We love it. We love it. We love it. We love it. Well, maybe for all of you out there that are listening, maybe we'll do a bit of a duo later on. Ali and I will do a Christmas duo. Oh,
That would be
that's
nice.
lovely. But thank you to the small family and everyone
Yeah.
that has contributed to the Connect Live series over these months since May. Every month, we've had a psalmist that's come and just shared the love of God through music, through singing, and using your gifts for the glory of God. And sometimes when you hear a song, it just reaches a part of your soul that it just takes you to a place and just lifts you and connects you with God. So thank you all for all of your contributions. We're going to be moving into our panel discussions. We'll have to ask the panelists, Alni, whether any of them play any instruments, because maybe we could get something going on here tonight. Yeah, we're going to bring the panelists together, and we're just going to, as I said, tonight's edition is a Christmas edition. We are reflecting on 2020. We're doing a look back, but we're also, more importantly, doing a look forward. And we've entitled that look forward, Mindset Matters, because we didn't know what was coming in 2020. We didn't know we were going to experience this global pandemic. And I believe there will be more challenges ahead. We can see from just from prophetically from the word that we are living in, trying times and in the last time. So there's going to be more challenges for us as individuals, more challenges as families, more challenges as a neighborhood, a community. And how do we adjust our mindset to face challenges? How do we adjust our thinking? How do we prepare ourselves to overcome obstacles, and how do we learn from the past? And so we're going to have a bit of that discussion towards the end, but we're going to hear some personal stories. So we want to bring on our guests at this time, Maureen, Geraldine, and Gloria. They're going to be joining us, and we're going to be hearing their personal stories of how they have overcome different challenges, different obstacles. And welcome to our panelists. Welcome. Welcome. Lovely to see you, and lovely to have you as our panelists tonight on the Connect Live series. And we really look forward to hearing your stories. So for our viewers, each of them are going to share their stories. And after they've shared their stories, because Ali and I, we've got to discipline ourselves not to jump in with questions. So we'll wait. We will wait till you've all shared your stories, and then we're going to have a bit of a discussion, ask you some questions, and then we're going to go into the kind of mindset matters and what have we learned and how we move forward in 2021. So without any further ado, we're going to go firstly to Maureen Morris, and she will introduce herself in more detail. Over to Maureen.
Hello again, everyone. Yes, so as you know, my name's Maureen. I am one of the regional leads here in Region 3, which covers the Bristol, Gloucester area. And yeah, just really sort of thankful for being here today. And so I'm going to share a little bit of my story, and just watching the small family just really kind of resonated with me, because I became a Christian when I was 5 years old, and you might think, wow. But yeah, 5 years old was a really significant time for me. And I just remember, I remember that day so clearly. An invitation was given to the altar for people to come forward to be prayed for. I suppose because I was so small and young, no one actually invited me to the altar. So I took myself, I felt like I was pushed to the altar. And I gave my heart to the Lord that night. And do you know why I know it was a real experience? My parents weren't saved. There were people who worked with my parents at church. And I went home, I cried for 3 days, didn't tell my mom or my dad why. I just felt so overwhelmed by what happened. So it's just so lovely to see sort of young people and to see children actually just demonstrating their skills and their love for God in such a way, and it just kind of reminisced with me. So from a very young age, I'm just sharing my story here. I've been in ministry from I was very young, giving testimonies. My grandmother would get me to do recitations. I can remember quite clearly at about probably 7 or 8 years old, singing at regional conventions. This one was in a town hall. I remember I couldn't even make contact with the faces of people. I just looked up to the gods in the town hall. But yeah, sermonettes. Yeah, we had a pastor. Alni, you'll know who our pastor was. He would just say in the morning, Maureen, I want you in the evening, you're going to come and you're going to give a sermonette. And that was probably when I was around 10, 11 years old. So yeah, ministry has been a part of my life. When I was about 15, I became a counsellor at our senior camp. I've taught Sunday school from that age. I started leading choirs at 16. I became Sunday school superintendent by the time I was 18. So again, ministry, part of my life. And amongst all that, at the age of 18 going 19, I went to study, and I studied to become a secondary school teacher, which is what I do even today. Following that, a year after I qualified, I married. I married Bernard, and he was at the time a district youth leader. So again, ministry being part of our lives. And if I was to talk about three areas which are really central to my life, the first one would be family. Family is a big part of my life. I have three children. We have three children. We have two in-laws, so Matthew and Yasmin. So my children are Janine, Jordan and Julia. Two of them are married. And recently, like Sister Alni, we got a lockdown grandchild, our first grandchild, little Jacob, who was born 11 weeks premature. We haven't seen him yet, but we're looking forward to that time when we can actually see him. So family is really important to me, and you know what? There's nothing that I wouldn't do for my family. I love my husband and children to bits, and you know, I just love the idea that when we come together, we just have quality time together. And in actual fact, we are a family of singers and musicians also. So that's really good to see that that element in today's our meeting today was just really fantastic to see. We've also done a family song. We've been doing that for a good number of years. Okay, so ministry then also has obviously been pivotal, because my husband was called to pastoral work about 27 years ago, and I enjoy kind of working behind the scenes, you know, encouraging people, just being there to help people practically. That's kind of my role. I also do minister, so I do preach, I do teach, etc. But one of the things that, in terms of ministry and family, that really kind of came to me was years before we had children. I remember a sister of ours at our local church actually talking, and she was quite bitter. It was a frank conversation that she had with me. She was quite bitter. And basically what she said was that her mother had time for ministry, and that's all she felt her mother had time for. Her mother didn't have time for them as children, and that was something that she was really resentful for. And that's something that I kept in the back of my head and thought to myself, never do I want my children to actually say that Mom, Dad didn't have time for us. My husband is very busy, but part of my ministry is my family, is my children. And I'd like to think that, you know, I have done the job of being there for them, even when Bernard's had to go away or go to conferences or speak. I've always been the kind of pivotal one. We've gone with him to certain places, but my family have always been the ones that I just feel are my mission field first and foremost. Before I can be a witness to anyone else, it's about witnessing to them. So I've always kept that in the back of my mind, how important it is for family to feel the ministry, having that ministry within the home. And then the third area then, talked about family, talked about ministry is my job. So I'm a qualified secondary school teacher. I also have pastoral responsibilities within that, within my job. So I consider that my job is not just a job, it's my vocation. So my pastoral responsibility is looking after the pastoral well-being of 250 students. And that is an awesome responsibility, because you get students with all kinds of issues that I'm having to deal with. So amidst all of that, about 20 years ago, I hit a wall, and I was trying to juggle ministry, family and work. I hit a wall and burnt out, basically. I burnt out. And that then led to sort of also suffering from depression. So for me, the things that were important were just thinking about, I don't want to dwell on the depression or the burnout, but just think about some of the factors which went behind that. So I had a bereavement. My grandmother had died. I'd gone to America to the funeral, and then unfortunately I came back, and the day after I got off the plane, I was back in work, and that I hadn't had time to grieve. Basically, I'm a perfectionist in my job. That was something else that contributed to that. I'm a strong, independent woman. So even if I have problems, I wasn't very good about sharing my problems with others. I'm still doing ministry. I was sort of burning the midnight, I was burning the candle at both ends, going out ministering, but then coming home and then beginning to mark and do every prep for work the next day. And hence I had to take 6 months out of work. 6 months where I couldn't minister and I couldn't work. And that's just a little insight into my story of how, but God brought me through, and I'm so grateful for Him bringing people into my life who I did allow in, and in allowing them in, God actually restored me, and yeah, I still minister today. So that's my story in a nutshell.
Wow, thank you. Thank you for sharing with us, Maureen. Thank you. Yeah, I've got a few questions, but let's hold them let's move across to Geraldine at this time.
Good evening once more. Just want to greet you in the mighty name of Jesus. I am the Region 2 Women's Ministry Lead. I am also the assistant pastor in my local church. My story is that my husband became saved in 1983. Now, it's normally the other way around because we weren't practicing Christians, naturally. But when he became saved in 1983, he tried convincing me that I needed also to give my heart to the Lord. I loved the Lord, but there was just something holding me back. And in fact, I would say that I was quite faithful to the local church. I didn't become a member or anything like that. But if they ever needed anything, I can remember a couple of times helping them out at their local conventions when they needed workers to help in the kitchen. I just didn't want that commitment. I helped out at VBS, but didn't want that commitment. And also, I must say that my husband came to know the Lord as a result of our son, whose friends were going to Sunday school and saying about what a good time they'd been having at Sunday school. And so asked if he could go. Now, the Sunday school used to do a pickup service like they used to do those days. And of course, we said yes, he could go. And then they had a Sunday school program, which they were told to invite their parents to. I didn't go, but my husband went and continued going. And now he's the pastor of the local church. But moving on, what actually started me on a journey of really being serious with the Lord was that one of the ladies who was actually from the local church, who was very good to us as a family. For instance, there were times when we didn't have a car, we couldn't afford to repair our car, and she would just ring up and she would say, "Oh, I'm not using my car today. Come and get it." Things like that. But she died suddenly. and we went to pay our respects to her. And when we went, the family was saying that she became ill, knew she was dying, and she just asked everyone to pray for her, and she was praying, and then she passed. And I remembered standing there, and I was thinking to myself, if I were to die, that's the way I would want to go. I would want someone to be praying for me. So I really just started thinking about my salvation then. And this was in October 1997. Now, in November 1997, we went to the Caribbean. We went on a visit. It was to Jamaica, St. Kitts, and Montserrat and Anguilla. But the volcano had started in Montserrat at the time, and we were going over to Montserrat for a day. We had to get a connection from Antigua, and we were told there were no connections because of the volcano. The ferry wasn't running. So we were standing in the airport thinking, what are we going to do? And a few minutes later, one of the airport workers came and rushed up to us and said, we've got a helicopter going to Montserrat. You can get on it. It was my husband, my sister, and myself. So we got on this helicopter to be flown to Montserrat, and I do not like heights. And while we were there in the helicopter, I looked down, and all I could see was the ocean under me. And I was there next to my sister and my husband, and I was looking down, and I just gave my heart to the Lord there and then. I was not going to wait. I did not say anything to my sister or my husband. I just stayed there and I just prayed. And I gave my heart to the Lord on the ocean, over the ocean between Montserrat and Antigua. And I have never looked back. Yes, I've come to the stage where I'm the women's ministry leader. I can remember when I was asked to do the position, I said yes. And then I suddenly became so frightened after I said yes that I just dropped to my knees and I prayed. And the scripture the Lord gave me is not by power or by might, but my spirit. And I've held that on to that. So there's a lot more I can say, but I'm just going to hand over now. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. Now that is really interesting. Getting saved
In
in
the
Montserrat and Antigua. All right, so we need a few more volcanoes. Thank you. We'll go into a bit more detail in a little bit, but without any further ado, we're going to ask Gloria to share her story with us.
Yes, as said before, my name is Gloria McGowan. I'm a wife, a mother of two now grown up children. I've got 5 grandsons, and I have been a senior pastor for 16 years, now retired. Um, During this time of pastoring, I was also the assistant regional overseer for Region 1 North, and also had a full-time job as a senior nurse and held various managerial positions within the NHS. And God has been truly good to me. Currently, I'm serving on the pastoral team at my local church, and also the prayer coordinator for the National Women's Ministry team. It's good to be here sharing with you today, and I trust that my sharing will be a source of encouragement to other ladies in leadership positions. One of the challenges I find for women in leadership position is the balancing impact between roles, having a family, your responsibility for the home, maintaining the home, the well-being of your family, husband, children, and also the extended family as well. We don't forget them because they often call upon us for support. There's also being a pastor, the responsibility of the local church, the day-to-day running of the local church, and dealing with the expectation of others and of yourself as well. The extended family, because of your role and your experience, they often call upon us as leaders, women in leadership position, for support. There's also the balancing of those roles with the family, your own family, and also the professional role. Being a manager in the NHS, that's also a very demanding role and very competitive, and one has to maintain their personal development, and it's also dealing with that and as a professional as well. I just want to share with you a particular challenge for me as a leader, as a pastor, and the balancing role between family life and all these things. When my daughter was 12 years old and was about to start secondary school, we, as a family, we had some stress going on. My mother was severely ill in the West Indies, and we had to travel out to see her. After which she subsequently passed away. But during this time, my daughter was meant to be starting secondary school. And I observed that she was losing quite a lot of weight. But because she was so active, she was doing the ballet, the gymnastic, the tap dancing, the modern dancing, the violin, and you name it, she was doing that. And we thought, well, growing up, maybe she was getting a bit more conscious and losing some weight. We went to do some shopping, school shopping, a few days prior to her starting secondary school. And what I observed was that she was very thirsty whilst we were there in the shop. And so I bought 2-liter bottles of water. That was the only water that was available at the time close by. And within a few minutes of being in the shop, choosing the uniforms, etc., when I looked around, the 2-liter bottle of water was finished. And I thought, this is extremely strange. And putting my nurse's cap on, I remembered some of the signs and symptoms of diabetes, and suddenly it just clicked. Loss of weight, polydipsia, or excessive thirst was one of the symptoms. So on completing the shopping, I just decided that I would take her straight to the GP. And taking her to the GP, GP did urinalysis, and we found out that she had lots of um, sugar in the urine and ketones, so had to take her straight to the hospital. And that's how we found out that she had type 1 diabetes. I was still a pastor, still had my professional responsibility, and also for the rest of the family as well. Anyway, during this time, she had several episodes of being unwell. So I would say from the start of secondary school and partway through university, she had several episodes of being unwell. Um, and I remember a particular time that she was unwell on life support in the hospital. And I was thinking, Lord, I'm a pastor, I'm a mother, and all these roles that I had to fulfill, and this is now happening. When she took ill this particular time, um, I found it very strange, because normally when she was ill and we took her to the hospital, the doctors would allow me in with her whilst they examined and whilst they did, whatever they needed to do. This particular time when we took her in, they asked me to wait outside. She was not unconscious, but she was just very poorly. And so what seemed like hours passing by, um, no one was coming out, no one was speaking to me. I kept going in and asking, to see her and what was happening. And all I was being told, doctor will see you shortly, doctor will see you shortly. However, when doctor saw me eventually and I saw my daughter, I nearly collapsed myself, because she was then, the tubes coming from everywhere. She was unconscious. And although as a nurse, I'm used to seeing those things, when it happens to someone close to you and your daughter, in fact, your only daughter, then, it's something else. And so she was in the intensive care unit for 10 days. Unconscious, and we didn't know whether she would make it. And I remember one night, just after I left the hospital, early hours of the morning, I went home and I was praying and just pacing the floor. And all of a sudden, the Spirit of God just spoke to me and said, I can do much bigger than this. And it was so clear. And suddenly I just stopped praying and just started praising. And so God was so good. She eventually was discharged from the hospital, straight from the intensive care unit. Normally, one would have been transferred to the ward to recuperate some more, but she was able to be transferred from the ward straight home. When she was coming out of the hospital, when she was being discharged, one of the anesthetists said to me, "This is a miracle." And, I said, yes, this is a miracle. And even on other occasions, when I meet him outside of the hospital, he would recall and remember what had happened. So all this, one had to deal with as a leader, as a pastor, the day-to-day running of the local church. There was still the sick to be visited, the phone calls to be made, taking care of the flock. And even in those times, one had to deal with the expectations of the members. Sometimes, even if other members visited or other leaders visited, they would still expect the pastor. And thinking back now, and reflecting back, sometimes we do try to prioritize, but sometimes we do not get it right. We do not get it right. But for us to learn from those mistakes, and God has been so good. For me, with my daughter, sometimes I would not sleep at night, and I didn't share some of these things because I would be watching and, going to check. And I became so sensitive that, and it's through God's mercy, sometimes just by touching her, I would know that something is wrong. And I would be able to wake her up and catch her before she had a hypo attack. And so we had a difficult time going through this period. And God provided what seemed like an angel at the time. On one of the occasions when she was ill and went into the Royal Free Hospital, there was a wonderful doctor. Don't know where she came from. She saw my daughter and she decided to refer her to St. Thomas's Hospital. Now she did this referral, and when she was about, Davina was about, my daughter was about to be discharged, there was something that we needed to query, and we wanted to find this doctor. None of the staff knew this doctor. They don't know who she was. But anyway, she made the referral. The referral went through, and my daughter ended up attended the St. Thomas's Hospital, and lo and behold, where she was receiving 5 injections per day because of the type 1 diabetes, because of the research that was done at this hospital, she was able to have an insulin pump, and this insulin pump supplied insulin to her continually. She can adjust the dosage, and so this pump just needed to be changed once every 3 days. And so her condition improved. She is doing extremely well. She completed university. She's in a good job within the NHS, not surprisingly. And yeah, so God has been so faithful to us. But one particular challenge for me was one of the times I was due to speak in the regional convention, and just before I was to go on to speak, my daughter collapsed, was very ill in the convention. And, I really thank God for my husband. My husband is a rock, has been a rock, has been always there, always supportive. And some of the members, they just took over and they ushered me out of the way. Now, I don't know how I managed, but they took my daughter to the hospital along with my husband. I went up I preached a sermon and then went to the hospital. And thinking back now, I'm thinking about prioritizing. Sometimes we feel that we need to do so much and we do not always get it right. Sometimes we do not always get the priorities right. And I'm thinking, sometimes I question myself, should I have gone to the hospital? Should I have, you know, gone to preach at that time? But she understood, because she understood that I, despite all that I had to do, despite the different roles, I still tried to make time for the family. We still had the fun times, the quality times together. And the watchful eye of the mother was still there, so she was understanding. And so that is part of my story, and balancing the role as a leader, and a mother, and the professional role. Yeah.
To be able to balance work with and family and church, I understand that sometimes it's very difficult to make that adjustment or to make that decision. And the experience that you share just at the end, where your doctor became very unwell and you were in a conference, and you had your responsibility was to moderate and to minister, and she took ill, and you were sort of in a dilemma whether or not to go with her or to carry on your duty. However, because you had the support of your husband, you went along. But then, as you said, it just left you with that thought, did I make the right decision? Should have I gone with my daughter, or should I? And yes, sometimes as leaders, it's very challenging to make that balance. And I think, on reflection now, I'm sure you would have done things differently.
I think I would have done things differently, because sometimes we set the bar so high for ourselves. We have very high expectations of ourselves, and we have a responsibility to family. Yes, we have a responsibility to the flock, but then sometimes there are capable people around that one can call upon, but because our own expectation of ourselves is so high, we do not always uh, make the right choices. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's so true.
Mhm.
Oh gosh, thank you. It's a really powerful story, and just coming back to Maureen, um, you shared your story about so many different things happening all at the same time, bereavement and not being able to, even to, grieve properly. What do you think really helped you through that time? And what would you say to others who are trying to balance the expectations of others and, just juggling so many things? How did you get through it?
I think, first of all, it's important to recognise, and this is something I had to learn the hard way, that expectations often come from our experience. So no doubt I'd looked at how my pastors, my former pastors, how their wives had managed what their role was. And for me, I suppose I fell into the rut of following what I saw. And I think it's important that you are you. During the time that I was ill, I had I had time that I just took out for myself. I had sort of some therapy, so I had reflexology, where somebody came into my home and she would just sort of massage my feet, and I'd fall asleep, and that was the only time I ever slept. I also had, there was a dear lady in our region, a senior lady, who one day the Lord just impressed her on my heart to call her. And I hadn't spoken or told anybody my story. So she came and I told her my story. And she was just like, it's okay to be you. Those words were powerful. It's okay to be you, because I felt like I possibly hadn't been me. I was living up to expectations. So I think if I was giving advice to someone, I'd say be authentic, be you. And that's how I live my life
Yeah.
now. That anybody who knows me, I'm probably not the conventional pastor's wife, because I'll muck in with what needs to be mucked in with, but at the same time, being me doesn't mean I'm on a pedestal. That's not how I operate. So I think somebody telling me that was probably worth £1 million to me, because it changed my life and it changed the way I did things.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's powerful, that it's okay to be yourself. Just be yourself and be
Yeah.
true to yourself, not what other people are expecting. Because sometimes expectations can be great.
Yes.
What are your thoughts on that, Geraldine?
Yes, I do agree with that. That it's okay to be you. I can remember being in the when I first became a member of the church, and I was busy doing a lot. And there was an elderly English couple. They've both gone on to be with the Lord now, but I always remember Brother John, the husband, one day taking me aside and saying, remember, people will always flag a willing horse to death. So you need to temper what you do. And so, yes, it is. And I must admit that sometimes I do still, in trying to balance, I do still get it wrong. But it's important that we just take time out for ourselves and just be us. And like sister like Maureen, I'm a pastor's wife, and I'm not the conventional pastor's wife. I'm very active, but I'm not the conventional pastor's wife. I'm also the assistant pastor, and so therefore sometimes the balancing is so difficult. But sometimes there have been times when I've just put everything down and I've just said, this is my time. When it's got so bad, I've just left everything and I've just taken time out for myself. And that's how I manage.
This is really a really interesting discussion,
Yeah.
because there's a couple of things that's coming out for me. Maybe we didn't anticipate this in our discussions previously, but it's two things are coming out for me. What is the typical pastor's
Conventional.
wife? Because you're both saying we're not the typical pastor's wives, and maybe we won't go there today.
I
And
I think I understand Maureen perspective in terms of not the conventional pastor's wife, because we were we came from the same church, so yes, there was that sort of image what a pastor's wife should do or should not do. And I think that it's good to be yourself, and that's something. Being a pastor's wife myself, I've had to learn to be me and not to because there's a lot that is expected of you, but then not to pretend, but just to be yourself. And I think when we begin to see ourselves, then people will treat us differently and respect us more, knowing that we're human beings at the end of the day. So I like that terminology, not the conventional type. It doesn't mean that we are rebellious or
No,
but it just means
no,
ourselves.
no, no.
Yeah, and I think I mean you've all shared, Maureen, you're a teacher by trade and you're still teaching. Um, Gloria, a nurse, senior manager in managerial roles, and Geraldine, in your professional role as an um, executive manager, in your roles, and balancing ministry. That's come across really strongly from the discussions. Balancing ministry and balancing family and balancing. I mean, I remember at times my husband is also a pastor, and he at one time he was working full time, and we say pastoring part time. I don't think there's any such thing as a
Yeah.
part time, um, and I'm working full time. We're having children, and sometimes we look back now and we say, "Oh my God, how did we make it through?" Because the kids are, they're older. My youngest is now nearly 18. I've got 4 children, and you're doing the night shifts. You're coming from nights. You're going to church. You're out in the evening. The babies are in the car, and you're praying that they go to sleep before you come home, just so that you can get some rest. But I think this whole notion of being your authentic self, I think
Mm.
will come up in our mindset matters, because this is
Yeah.
also I think what you're saying, mindset matters. 2021, that I think would be number one: being your authentic self, being yourself, not what other people expect from you. Thank you. And sometimes it takes someone to actually say that um, to you. Um,
Hmm.
Geraldine, if we come back to this Antigua and Montserrat, get it safe over um, the sea, right?
Yeah.
Now, I'm gonna ask you this question. I don't know if I should ask you this question on air, but
I don't
oh my God, what was it? The love of the Lord and wanting to give your heart to the Lord, or was it the fear of the
Yeah.
heights and
I think it was the fear of the heights, but the Lord understands. Anyway, I think it definitely was the fear of the Lord, but I wanted if I was going down there, I knew the Lord would be there for me. So yes, I think it was definitely the fear, but God knows, yes.
I think that
And
was
he's
just
been
so.
very patient, and I just want to give those with unsaved partners out there, unsaved spouses, that there is hope, because it was nearly 15 years after my husband became saved that I actually gave my heart to the Lord. So for those who are out there praying for unsaved spouses, know that in God's own time, He will touch them. And it is so unusual, because normally it's the women who get saved and then they're struggling to get the husbands on board. But in this case, I do things differently. But with God's grace, we're just so grateful.
Mm.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting because you say it was 15 years, and you know your husband had nothing to do with it. You're traveling over the seas, you know a natural act of God, and
Yeah.
you make up your mind there and then. And you
Yeah.
said you said nobody knew, but in your heart you made that
Yes.
decision.
Yes.
So, as you say, that message of hope, just continue
Mm.
praying for, and it might be your spouse, but it might be other members of your family. It might be, your grandchildren, your children. It might be, you know, just keep on praying and keep on trusting God. I think it's the message that you're giving, Geraldine.
Yes.
And
Definitely. It
and
definitely is.
and also she mentioned that it was 1997 that he became. Did you say he became a born again Christian?
No, no, that was me. He became born again but I remembered the date 1997 because that was a very profound year, because that was the year Princess Diana died. Now, she was a woman who, everyone thought would live forever, and there she was, cut down in her youth. And then it was a month later that the sister from the local church died. So that stayed with me. And the thing with the sister that had died, I went to church that Sunday, although I wasn't saved the last time she preached, and everyone just kept commenting about how beautifully she looked. And then a couple of days later, she had passed. And so all that, I do believe, was connected in me coming to know the Lord. The Lord had a plan for me, and he was just working it out.
Yeah.
Mm.
Okay. Yeah.
It- it's profound, isn't it? How
Hmm.
different things happen that
Mm.
lead you to a point where you make a certain decision. It might not just be like this, it might be
Yeah.
accumulation of things
Yeah,
over a period of
yeah,
Mm.
time.
Because I'm
You
sure there are many viewers out there who can identify the moment they came to faith. Sometimes it's a certain situation, or it could be under some tragic that really brought them to faith. And you were brought to faith in that helicopter, whether or not it
yeah.
was fear. You became conscious that there was a God that you need to give your to surrender. And I think that's a powerful testimony that a decision was made in an helicopter to surrender your life. And I'm sure there are others out there that think, well, I don't necessarily have to go to church and give my heart to the Lord. Once I've made up my mind, the Lord is willing to accept me wherever I am. So that was a powerful statement. Thank you for sharing.
Okay,
Mm.
thank you.
I've got a question for Gloria. As you talked about prioritizing, balancing work, leadership, and you shared, that your daughter took sick when you were just about to go on and minister. And sometimes this is a women's program, so as women in leadership, um, there are probably similar and different challenges to men in leadership, and that must have been a really tough decision for you to make. You know, you on the one hand, you're the woman. The woman is the nurturer, and it's your daughter, and you've shared. I can see your grandson. Oh, let him come in and say hi to us, King. Oh, he's lovely. Um,
Say
Hi,
hi.
King. Hello, King. Hiya. Happy
Okay.
Christmas.
What's in the mouth?
Hello, happy
But
Christmas.
say hi to aunties. Look at the aunties.
Hi, you want to
Hello, Christmas.
Hello.
Oh, what is it?
Okay, your daughter Davinia's come to retrieve him.
Yes. Yes.
Hi, Davinia.
Oh dear.
It's okay,
Yes, he
Davinia.
would have to act at some point. He would have to.
No, that's fine. That's lovely. Lovely to see them. So exactly what you're saying. There's Davinia, the daughter that you were talking about. So how did you balance and prioritize? And importantly, would you have done things differently? We know you're not in pastoralship at the moment, but would you have done things differently?
Yes, I think sometimes we need to take some time out to reflect on what we're doing, and is it always the best? Family is part of our ministry as well, and there I've seen where sometimes there are other families, how the children turn out to be bitter against church because they felt that the parents did not give them sufficient time and that they were always ministering. Um, I was blessed that my daughter understood what was happening at the time, and she understood that I had to make a choice there and then. But because on other occasions, I've always been there. I've been there for the school activities, I've been there for the meetings, I've been there in the nights, watching, not sleeping when others, yeah. So I think she understood. But I, thinking back now, reflecting on that choice, I think maybe I had too high an expectation of myself at the time, and I think as women, sometimes we set the bar particularly high for ourselves, not
Yeah.
forgetting that we are normally the carers, and
Yeah.
we are in a pastoral role. We want to fulfill all the roles that the men did, taking over from um, other strong men as well, from strong men that did quite a lot of things. We expect to do those things and probably more, take care of the family, full time job. Um, yes. So we need to prioritize and take time for reflection, see, look at the things that we're doing, how we're doing them. Is there anyone else that could fulfill those roles? And do the things that you need to do, and value your own uniqueness. We're all
Yeah.
different. We're
Yeah.
all
Mm,
different. And you know sometimes the expectation of others are not really realistic, and sometimes we go along with those things as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
now that is, I mean, really powerful. And again, what you're sharing links into the mindset matters, because what I'm hearing you saying is be realistic about what you can achieve.
Mm.
It's not it's not about other people's expectations of you. Um, you've got to be real and value your own uniqueness. That is so powerful. Maureen, you said earlier that one of the contributing factors to that 6 month period of burnout was being a perfectionist. Do you think that um, impacted on how your own journey, and how have you addressed that? And what would you say to others that who are perfectionists out there?
So perfectionism, I think I like a job to be done well. And I suppose that comes from my experience of looking how sometimes we do things and we don't do things with that air of professionalism. We do it at work, but when it comes to church, it's kind of like roughshod. It's not really as it should be. So I think it's a pressure I put on myself. Um, I would say to people what I've actually had to say to myself now. I have a mantra, and I say, in terms of my job, there is always tomorrow. It is my job, it is not my life. So that kind of gives me a context to that I will never allow my job to let me feel as if I'm not coping. So I prioritize what I need to do in a day. If I can't do it all, I'll delegate. As part of my role as a head of house, I've got a team of about 12 people. So I can delegate things, and that's what I choose to do in my secular job. In terms of church, if I can't do it, I will say to individuals, I'm sorry, I can't do it today. I will aim to help you, but if it cannot be today, it will be. So it's just not putting that pressure on myself, because sometimes you put pressures on yourself which you then have to recover from. So it's actually, it's me talking to myself and telling myself, you know what, it's too much for you today, can't do it all, just do what you can. So I think we need to take off the brakes. We need to, you know, we put ourselves under pressure. I put myself under pressure, and I've had to learn how to adjust those things. So again, it's about being real and being realistic about what can be done and what can't be done.
That is,
Yeah.
I mean, you know, they're really sensible, and it might sound basic, but actually, why do so many people struggle with it if it's so basic?
Mm.
You know,
Because we
because
overcomplicate.
Yeah, I think when we actually hear it, then it doesn't sound so complicated. But when we're
Mm.
in it, it does seem, because Maureen talks about taking the brakes off and we put in pressure on ourselves. But then when we take the brake off, then you find that people think that there is something wrong.
Yeah.
They're also, it's not just our expectation, it's their expectation. So there is
Mm.
our expectation and theirs on top. So it makes things even more complicated. So when we make that conscious decision that, you know what, I'm going to slow down, then sometimes there is a reaction. What's wrong with her? What's wrong with, with that individual? So, but it's a conscious decision that we have to make as an individual to work within our own remit, work within our own strengths, because or else we will continue to become unwell.
And I think it's important also to take rest. So
Yeah.
this lockdown for me has been about taking a Sabbath and having rest. And I think that is so important. My local church knows that when I'm on holiday, my first couple of days, I'm in my bed. I'm just being perfectly honest. I stay in bed, I get up, have a wash, I'll have something to eat, I'll get up, I'll cook dinner. But, it's about me just shutting down and just having some quality time, rest. And I think that's something that we all need to recognise, that nobody's going to look after me if I don't look after me.
Yeah.
So true.
that's powerful. That's powerful. Sorry, were you
Yeah.
going to come in, Gloria?
No, as I was saying, that's so true, because oftentimes, and even having the nurse's cap on, sometimes we focus so much on taking care of others that we don't actually look after ourselves. And in a work situation, sometimes we go without breaks, we just continue, and sometimes we take it in to the family, as well, and the other roles that we have to fulfill. And when you realize you have taken no time for yourselves, no time to rest, no time to take care of the body, and our bodies are temples of God. We need to look after our bodies as well. So yes, we need to have some me time and time to reflect and actually look at the end of the day. What did I do today? Were those things necessary? Were those things really necessary for that time? Could I have left some things over for the next day? Yeah, I think reflection is
Yeah.
important. Mm.
Geraldine, how do you balance? because I know as a regional women's director, I know you do a lot of things in the community as well. I know you are retired now, but how assistant pastor, I do know as well that you're currently studying as well. So
Yeah.
what's your tips for women out there around just that prioritizing and balancing?
I would say my tip is, and sometimes I'm not very good at following my own as humans, we're not very good, but it's about taking time out to be with God and having spiritual rejuvenation. As you've just said, I've just started studying, and one of the books we had to read in one of the courses was called Spiritual Disciplines. And one of the things it talks about is like taking time out to meditate. Now, things like that, we don't like to hear that word meditate, but when you think David meditated on the word of the Lord, so we take time out and we just take a scripture and we go over it and just let it rest in our spirit. Take time out for ourselves. Also, another way of balancing is that when it's getting too much, just take time out to exercise, have a break. One of the things sometimes we tend to be, as I've heard a few people saying, too heavenly minded to be any earthly good. We're too spiritually minded, and that is being spiritual and being, a child of God is the most important thing. But sometimes God just wants you to just take that time out and just spend the time. Sometimes it might be just a day of watching a film, that you've always wanted to see. Just take time out, watch an afternoon matinee, read a book, go for a long walk, just things like that to keep you focused. But I can understand the dilemmas, because last weekend I had to get an assignment in and I was having all kinds of problems, and the assignment needed to be in by some tests by 4:59 in the morning, and it was like 4:30 because I'd had some problems. So it was about 4:30 and my husband was going to, that's in the morning, we was going to go to bed, and I said, no, you've got to stay up with me. I cannot fall asleep. But there was a time I had to take time out, and I just had to have all these breathing exercises and then relax and then go back to it because it needed to be done. Yeah.
Sometimes taking time out for ourselves can be challenging, but I think it's something that I personally have started to do, Geraldine.
Mm,
I go for
yeah.
walks. I sit down now and I watch certain films which
Mm,
over the years I've never watched, and now I'm able to just have some me time without feeling guilty. And then, as you said,
yeah.
sometimes just focus on something else. Yes, the inner man is being built up, but sometimes it's just good just to relax and chill. And
Mm,
I'm doing plenty of that now as well.
yeah.
Yeah, I think for
Mm,
for for a certain mature woman, for mature women that's probably got more time, I can imagine some of the younger women that are juggling, because I remember if was in a conversation like this maybe 20 years ago, um I'd be kind of looking up and thinking, are they for real? I really would, because when you're juggling children and you're working full time and someone's saying to you, go for a walk and taking time out, it's like, well, are they really living in the real world? So if there are people out there thinking, are they living in a real world? I would just say to you, yes, because
Real.
number one, you know, I've balanced and managed a career. I studied to master's level, and I did all of this when the children were young. I did my degree when my son was 1 year old, and I'd got a daughter 3. I did my master's back in 2009, working full time. Um, being a pastor's wife, managing all of, and I've worked to become a director in the NHS, doing all of these things. Yes, if you ask, there were times where that's why I love baths now. I didn't have the time to have a bath. I had to do shower and out. Well, everything that you did was like in and out, in and out, in and out.
Yeah.
And now I don't like the shower. I prefer to go in the bath. This is probably a bit too much detail, but it's because it's because
Relaxation.
it's relaxation. But I didn't have the time. So what
Mm.
the point I'm making is, whatever your situation, whatever, no matter how busy you are, mindset matters. And I think we've heard some of the tips that no matter how busy you are, in fact, if you're very busy, it's probably more important that you stop and reflect on some of the points that have been made. And I've just made a bit of a list, and I'm sure our panelists are going to add to this, but being realistic about what you're trying to do. Sometimes we're doing other people's jobs.
Yeah.
We're doing our job and we're doing other people's job. And someone said, I think it was Geraldine, that if you're the willing one, you end up being put on more than others. So just be careful that you're not doing your job and you're doing everybody else's job and you're wondering why they look so refreshed. It's probably
Yeah.
because you're doing what they should be doing. So that's one thing. The other thing I heard was about be realistic about what you can achieve. And Maureen, I think you said words to the effect, Rome wasn't built in a day. What can wait till tomorrow? I've heard the word prioritize. Look at what needs to be done now, what can be prioritized for next week. We don't always have to say yes to everything.
Yeah.
That's the other one. Sometimes we find
Yes.
it difficult to say no. All right, let's practice. Let's practice. No.
Yes.
No.
No.
But I quite like what Maureen said, because what you said, Maureen, is that I'm sorry, I can't do it now. However, you might be able to do it sometime later, but you come with a plan of maybe how you can help, but within your time frame. So it's that kind of being true to yourself. um Gloria said, value your own uniqueness. So don't try to be like somebody else. We've got to be ourselves. And there's no two Joyces, there's no two Glorias, there's definitely no two Alnies. I know that. We're unique, and let's celebrate being unique. We talked about the expectation of others and sometimes the pressure that we put on ourselves, and talked about perfectionism. Now, one thing, good is enough. Sometimes we want to be excellent, and we want things to be excellent all the time, but is good enough? And so if you're trying to be excellent in everything, then that's when you put pressure on yourselves. And sometimes it's just okay to be good. and just meet the baseline, and then some real practical things that came out in the last bit of the discussion, which was take rest. So yeah,
Can
I
I
can
can I
hear
add
some.
can I add,
Yes,
Joy, the area about rest? I think that is so important. I'm at that stage because I've been in ministry with my husband over 40 plus years, even though I have not been the assistant pastor, but I've supported him having young children, having to work full time. I've always worked, and I took retirement 4 years ago. And it's only now that I'm actually, because when you said, Joyce, how do we do it? Or some people might be saying, how do you have time to rest? How do you have time to enjoy yourself? I'm able to do that now because 3 children, they've all grown and all of them now are left home. So I've got the capacity, and thank God that I'm in good health to be able to enjoy life even better. So I think that the time will come when some of the responsibilities are in fact not taken from you, but it's up to you really to give up some of those extra responsibilities and learn to say no. I say no a lot, especially to my husband when he asks me to do things. So when you learn to say no, because if you say yes to everything, then you're going to become worn out. So
Yeah.
it's getting to that place when you can say, you know what, I've done that. This is now my time to rest and to enjoy life.
so there is something about prioritizing yourself, and I think that's essentially what you're saying, prioritizing.
Yeah.
And there are some things that when you look at the bags of responsibilities that you have, and I'm not necessarily just talking about church now, I'm talking about as women, we have
Yeah.
so many different things that, there are some things that, you know, do you have to be on that additional committee? I've had to reassess some of those things as well, because if you're finding that you got 3 meetings in one evening, and most evenings you've got meetings and you're working in the day, a time will come where you will burn out, because
Yeah.
it,
Yeah.
it, it, the body just won't be able to take it. So it is being sensible and
Mm.
working through what the priorities are. What do you have to step down from? You've probably been on that committee for so long. Maybe it's time to give somebody else an
Nance.
opportunity,
Yeah.
um, and just rebalance and reposition. Now that's been a word that, in our prayers, and even over the last years in through the women's ministries and retreats, that's one of the themes that the Lord shared with us, was about repositioning. And I do believe that over this year that there has been some repositioning. I think
Yeah.
that's what you shared earlier on, Aldi. People are taking on studying, people are going into business, people are just reevaluating.
Mm.
So we talked about rest, we talked about meditation, and we talked about exercise. So as we are nearing over the next 5 or so minutes, 5-10 minutes, I just want us to, I'm just going to ask each of our panelists, no more than 2-3 minutes, 2 minutes. What's your parting words in terms of mindset matters for 2021? Should we start with you, Maureen?
Okay, so I have two things very quickly. Just on
Yes.
the matter of rest, I'd actually say power naps are really good. So when I come in from work, I take a half an hour nap. Did that when my children were young as well, and it just rejuvenates the battery. So that's my first one. My second one would be, have at least one person who you can be accountable to, somebody who will check in on you to see that you are doing things that are right or that are proper, or who can ask you the questions that sometimes you ask yourself and ignore. So I would say have somebody that you're accountable to, at least one individual. I have many.
Okay, that's great. So they check in and say, are you making sure you're balancing X, Y, Z? Give me an example. Give us an example. If there's a lady out there that's thinking, right, yeah, I want to get an accountability partner. Give them an example of the sorts of things that they'd be checking in on you.
Okay, so it may be that in an evening there are three things to do. I've got to cook a meal, I've got to go to a prayer meeting, I've got to do some marking, and they will say to me, well, do you have to do all those things? Which can you leave for another day? And I'll say to them, well, okay. And it gives me the opportunity just then to process what I need to think about. So obviously the prayer meeting is imminent, so I may say that, but I can put the marking off. I don't have to come back home and do the marking. So somebody who will just give you that kind of what you're thinking, and you're not actually listening to yourself, they will just be the one who can actually just say, well, okay, let's just reason this out. So yeah, that's the example that comes to mind.
No, thank you for that, because sometimes we do over worry and over stress about things, and sometimes just having that conversation can help you to just de-stress and just rethink things. Thank you. Gloria,
Yeah.
what are your
Yes. Take time out, reflect on what you're doing. When learn to say no, and when asked to do something as an emergency, is it an emergency for that person? Is it an emergency for you? Could anyone else fulfill that role? And it's important to be able to say no. And sometimes, some of the times, we don't say no when we should. So learn to say no. Learn from past experiences, the good things and the bad things. Do not focus too much on the negative, but learn from those things, and maybe perhaps how you could do things differently. Because sometimes we beat up ourselves when we get it wrong, but learn to move on and learn to do things differently next time.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much for those really, really poignant points. And Geraldine.
Yes, I quite agree with what Maureen and Gloria have said. We, both said, and I do try to learn from experience. And just quickly, at one of the women's ministry conference, we had a lady who, was ill, and a few of us spent time for most of the morning missing the session because we were praying for her and nothing happened. But one of the ministers took me aside after, and she said, you need to recognize that that was the enemy at work. She said, anything like that happens in the future, assess. And if there isn't a threat to life, then it's not an emergency. Don't miss the program because of that. And so it's learning and assessing things like that, because we need to sometimes recognize that the enemy comes to distract us. And so we need to take that time out and reflect and also learn from our experiences. I've just finished, as part of my course, reading a book, the five elements of effective thinking. And one thing it's saying is do not despair because you failed. Learn from that failure. That's how many people have become great, because they've learned from their failure. And I think sometimes we're so afraid of failing that we cannot think of anything else. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Some really powerful points and mindset thinking and mindset shifts for 2021. Alni, is there anything you'd like to add? And before we thank our guests and summarize.
I agree with all three, actually, about we just need to reflect and learning to say no, not taking on too much. And as Geraldine said, that, if you try something and you fail once, don't give up. Don't think that you are a failure. You failed on that particular issue, but just continue. So it's just to have a positive, and as Gloria said, is not to think on the negative, but to think on the positive. And by thinking on the positive, we will be more strengthened. Yes, because we all make mistakes, but don't focus on the mistakes. Focus on the thing that we do very well. So yeah, that's what I would say.
Thank you very much. Sometimes we do something and 10% goes wrong. But what do? We zone in on the 10% and not
Yeah.
focus on the
Yeah.
90% that went right. So that's about shifting our thinking and shifting mindset. And I think this is something that we probably need to come back to. This whole mindset matters as we move into 2021. We don't know about the future. God holds the future in his hands, but with his strength, whatever comes our way in 2021, we know that we will come through by
Amen.
his grace and by his mercy, and by helping ourselves too, and taking all the tips that you've shared tonight about Mindset Matters, but also thank you so much for sharing your stories and your journey. And I know you only got time to share the tip of the iceberg, but I'm sure that our women have taken away so many nuggets today. So thank you all so much, Maureen Morris, Geraldine Boyd, and Gloria McGowan. And please give that grandson of yours a big hug. And Maureen, for when you see your new grandson, it must be heartrending not to be able to see him or hold him, Jacob. But we pray that, maybe over the Christmas into the new year, you'll get chance to, as the pandemic shifts, that you'll get chance to see your grandson and to be able to hug him and just give him I can imagine what that must feel like, not to be able to hold him. But yeah, we pray and we move forward into 2021 with vision, with hope, with strength, and we will stay connected. God bless you, panelists. God bless.
God bless you.
Bye
God
bye.
bless.
Thank you.
Bye bye. Bye bye.
Bye-bye.
Whoa, Alni,
Yes.
where has the time gone? We've come to the end of our December edition, Christmas edition.
Yes.
I tell you, I've learned some stuff from the panelists today. What any thoughts, final reflections from you?
Yeah, it was interesting what they shared, and they were very open and transparent, and each one bringing a different flavor, which is so. It was very interesting, and I'm sure that our viewers that they will. I hope that they've learned something, and we try to talk about the shifting of mindset, and as we go into 2021, that we will go in with a different mindset and positive. None of us know what's 221 going to hold, but we don't want to go in worried, fearful, but we just want to go in with a positive mindset and just take every day as it comes.
Absolutely, absolutely. So we want to, in closing, just want to thank all of our viewers. Thank everyone that supported the Connect series, our technical support, Pastor Errol, who's done an amazing job since we started Connect Live series. We want to thank those that support us in the back office, with the media, our media team, our Connect team, our national team that supports us with our retreats. Yes, we didn't have a retreat for 2020, but we will be having some sort of retreat for 2021, and we'll be announcing that in the new year. Most likely it will be an online, but we want to do something really special. But we'll make that announcement in January. But I want to thank all those team members, because they've been, if I start calling their names, Donna Gordon Rowe, if I start calling names, I'm going to get myself into trouble. But I must call Denise Bailey, the worship team, Angela Reed and the team, head of music ministries that have been supporting us, over the years. We really want to thank you, head of beauty, Dawn Prince. You have been with us on this journey over the years. And, yes, the pandemic came about and we've not had the retreats, but I know that you are there supporting, and, just our head of finance, all of you, we want to appreciate you, and want to appreciate our regional women's directors, our women's leaders, all of our women. We want to say seasons, greetings, and families, Women are part of families. We want to say seasons, greetings to you. Enjoy the rest of the Christmas season. And we look forward to seeing you in 2021. May God bless you. May God keep you.
Can I just add, Joyce?
Yes.
You said thank you to everyone, but I would also like to extend a big thank you to you, because without your leadership, without your vision, then this wouldn't have taken place. And you are a visionary. You are a hard worker. You've got your hands in many things, but at the same time, you are very effective. You are very creative. You allow others to utilize their skills. Even though I said that your hands in everything, but you do not hold everything. You allow people to work in their strengths. And because of that, you've got good people working with you. And I just want to say thank you. Thank you for being a good leader. Thank you for being a good example. Thank you for your professionalism. Thank you for your loyalty and your faithfulness and your commitment. And we love you and appreciate you. God bless you.
Alni, you kind of got me that a side shot there. Thank you so much. Yeah, there's a
This
tear
is
in my
from my
eye.
heart. No notes, from my heart.
No,
From my
thank you
heart
so much.
to your heart.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. I receive it. Thank you so much. And thank you for walking alongside me as our co host. I can see that not long from now, you're going to be hosting. I saw you a bit earlier on. I had to dash off and you took over and you just got on in there. So, may God bless you, Alni, as you move forward in 2021, walking in your full potential and purpose, because God has a plan for every one of us and He has a plan for you also. May God bless you, women, families. May God bless you all. Enjoy the rest of the season and Happy New Year when it comes. God bless you. God bless
God
you.
bless you. Happy New Year.
King of kings, majesty, God of heaven, living in me, gentle Savior, closest friend, strong deliverer, beginning and end. All within me falls at your throne. Your majesty, I cannot bow. I lay my all before you now. In royal robes I don't deserve. I live to serve your majesty. I have traveled many moonless nights, cold and weary, with a babe inside, and I wonder what I've done. Holy Father, you have come and chosen me now to carry your Son. I am waiting in a silent prayer. I am frightened by the load I bear in a world as cold as stone. Must I walk this path alone? Be with me now. Be with me now. Breath of heaven, hold me together. Be forever near me. Breath of heaven. Breath of heaven, lighten my darkness. Pour over me your holiness, for you are holy. Breath of heaven, do you wonder as you watch my face, if a wiser one should have had my place? But I offer all I am for the mercy of your plan. Help me be strong. Help me be. Help me. Breath of heaven, hold me together. Be forever near me. Breath of heaven. Breath of heaven, lighten my darkness. Pour over me your holiness, for you are holy. Breath of heaven, hold me together. Be forever near me. Breath of heaven. Breath of heaven, lighten my darkness. Pour over me your holiness, for you are holy. Breath of heaven.